The Cardi Girls, we're Cardi Girls. I'm gonna say what we want. The Cardi Girls, singing from the front. The Cardi Girls, our mouths are our guns, and we here and fighting, cause it has to be done. We're gonna say what we want. The Cardi Girls, singing from the front. The Cardi Girls, our mouths are our guns, and we here and fighting, cause it has to be done.
So now,
We're gonna say what we want.
break your friends like
Cardi Girls, singing from
it's like a bit of a free for all, isn't it? Really?
I think there's an assumption that
For a while now, Jodie, while we talk about some of this week's highlights.
Yep, absolutely.
We're gonna say what we
Like
want. The
Carlton,
Cardi Girls. We're singing from the front. The Cardi Girls. Our mouths are our guns, and we here and fighting, cause it has to be done.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm all right.
Your hair looks nice.
Oh, thank you. I've had it razor cut. She went
Yeah,
crazy.
nice.
Thanks.
Actually,
Thank you.
my hairdresser cuts each strand with scissors. He's Turkish, so he still cuts like cutting men's hair, and he just cuts so it takes forever, but he does such a good job, and I don't ever have to really do it. It just,
Yeah, your hair always looks lovely. I love your fringe. I'm
Oh, my
pretending-
friend, he thins that out because I'm a bit like you, a lot of hair. So I
Oh,
look on the
so much
floor and I go, oh my God. I said, one day, hopefully I'm always going to have a lot of hair. When you get
Yeah.
old, don't just say your hair falls out. Anyway, well, I'm
I'm
old, but
Not, well, no, you're not. Because if you're old, then I'm old, and we're not old. So that's that.
no, we're not old. We're not old. No, we're not old. So,
No, and I'm cold, but I'm not old. I've got my warming cat on my lap to keep me warm because my bedroom's
so is
quite
it cold? Is it cold over there at the moment? Really cold.
My bedroom's cold. It's not freezing. It was 15 degrees today, but very rainy, very grey, very foggy, just miserable. But my bedroom's quite a cold room, which is where I do the show because it's the quietest room.
Yeah, right.
So
Well, my exciting news, my little, the chooks, the little chickens that I hatched in the incubator, they laid an egg yesterday, and the day before that, the little rooster crowed.
that's lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice, really nice.
That's the circle of life, eh? I
Yeah,
still can't stop thinking about that fella we had on 2 weeks ago talking about the dung beetles.
I know, it was good, wasn't it?
It was really good. And I said to my husband when we were driving out for dinner the other night, and I was thinking about it again, I said, if there was ever any evidence, or if you want any evidence that there is a God who planned the earth and made a plan for us, it's dung beetles. Because who else would have thought of that?
The dung beetles, I know, they're amazing.
They've got one job and they do it, and it's a really good job. And,
I know.
And it makes so much sense. Like,
If only all the farmers did it. If all the farmers did it, then that would make them not use so much chemical. It would make the soil richer. And remember, we had Bronwyn on a while back about the earthworks with the earth food. All that would come into it, and we would have beautiful soil.
I know.
No.
I know. That was one of the most profound things. I'd never really thought about a dung beetle. It's a bit like, okay, so this is going to show how I'm a bit not particularly. I'm smart, but I'm also stupid because I always thought that castor oil was to put on casters. It was to put on the casters of your Playmobil, or like in the olden days, if you had a drinks trolley, you'd put castor oil on the casters and got it so it didn't squeak when the butler wheeled it into your dining room.
But it's a plant.
It's a plant. And
Yes.
so I thought a dung beetle was a beetle that was called a dung beetle because I don't know why. It never even occurred to me that they actually did something to dung.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So what else don't I know? That's what I wonder.
My policy is we learn one new thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll learn more than one. But anyway.
I'm going to learn something about you today, aren't I?
Yeah, ask me what sort of day I had.
How's your day been, Kay?
Michael, show us what sort of day I had. or Kelly. If we flick through these quickly.
Is that your house?
Yes,
Well, I like your fireplace.
I know it's
Why,
beautiful.
why are there policemen in your house?
Well, we don't know, really.
What do they do? What?
Well, 7 o'clock this morning, they rocked up. Bruce was still in his undies. I was just getting dressed. My brother-in-law was here. He was making a cup of tea. He didn't even see them arrive. He was making a cup of tea. Then they came in. Oh, then they took our phones and, I don't know. We still don't know why.
How many of them? Was that
9.
9?
9.
That seems like a good use of resources.
9.
9.
Yeah,
What-
9.
Well, do you have any clues as to what it was about? Like,
Well, probably to do with the DEZI stuff. I don't know. Because we knew him. I don't really know. They couldn't
Was it-
really tell us. They took all our. Well, hopefully I might try and sell them those phones. They're all really old. We had a whole stack of old phones. They took all of those. They wanted our NBN modem, but we don't even have the NBN here. So that's nice. We can do Starlink. We'll have to get up on the roof.
Yeah.
So it was quite amusing. I think they were there for 3 hours.
Guys, or did they
Sorry?
search the whole town? Was it just
Well,
you?
I don't know. They wouldn't have time because they were here for 3 hours. They only had 3 hours to search our place.
They searched your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, and walked around and took videos. And my husband said, well, hang on, well, you could be a crook. You could come back and wreck our house. Because we know what they did to our other house. We saw pictures of that. So, yeah, they just looked in things, and I don't really know. We don't really know what they were there for. I'm going to have to chase up that magistrate because still we didn't get an affidavit.
But did they have a search warrant?
Yeah, they had search warrants made out to each of us, Bruce and I, and one for the property. I don't even know if they went to the shed. They let the cat in though, and he pissed on the wall. I wasn't happy about. This guy kept this guy kept going in and out, leaving the door open.
Oh,
So I was just really. And then they took my phone, and I went out and spoke to the inspector. And anyway, I said, "You can't take my phone. I'm going to take my hard drive." I said, "That is my workplace, and I'm 24/7." So they decided they could copy all the stuff off my hard drive. Oh, good. There's some really good legal stuff on there, so I hope they read it. And then they took my phone. And the phone's going to take 7 hours to download. I've got 264,000 emails. Good luck with that. Maybe they could sort them for me. Anyway, eventually they left after it was pretty. Actually, we actually educated them with a lot of things. We talked about mRNA vaccines. We talked about Forest of the Fallen. We talked about all sorts of things that they didn't know about. So hopefully, I don't know if they were listening because I think they were probably saying, oh, for God's sake, get us out of here before they lecture us anymore. So we got a lot of information out to them.
good on you.
Lots of things. We spoke about all types of things, particularly how they need to start their investigation elsewhere, all sorts of things, I don't know how well organised they are. They had a drone up earlier because then we had a neighbour come up and said, are you guys all right? There was a drone over your house. I went, a drone? But apparently they do drones to make sure it's safe for them to come in because we're such dangerous people, Bruce and I.
I can't believe I'm hearing this.
Oh, don't worry. We couldn't believe it. We're sitting there going, are you for real? They did say when they came in they weren't going to arrest us. And I said, oh, I'm glad about that. What? Why would you be arresting us?
What would you be being arrested for?
Well, we're not quite sure. I think it's called bullying tactics. And I told them I don't trust them. I said to them, I don't trust you. So anyway, then they left. Thank God. Then we were meant to go get our phone back from Wangaratta, and it wasn't finished because they hadn't even got to Wangaratta. So there was another fib, they told us. Then eventually she said that she's going to bring the phone. My phone was prioritised because of my work. So I'm going to pick that up tomorrow. And then they're going to have to take Bruce's phone to Melbourne because they haven't got the equipment to do 2 phones at once in that police station. I don't know. Anyway, good luck. They can look what they like in my phone because they might learn something. They might have a little lesson to learn something. So that wasted our whole fucking day, excuse my swearing, because I was meant to go to yoga. Bruce was meant to go on a motorbike ride. And then they came, and then, anyway. How did they react? Oh, well, they didn't, because they don't react to much at all. The brown shirts, it was so funny. My brother-in-law gave it to them. It was quite funny, actually. But yeah, they're just, I still don't know. It was really funny because I had a premonition. I saw lights come. It was dark. I saw lights coming up the driveway. I thought, I bet that's the police. Sure enough, it was the police. They had 3 cars, one of those black cars all written on. The other cars were all undercover cars.
So are they thinking that you've been like hiding him or something? Or we're hiding him?
Oh, God, we weren't even here. We were up in the north. I don't know what they think. I don't know. You know, because there's a whole big community here of people who knew him. So I don't know who else. We heard there was 7.
No, Kay doesn't own the property where the conflict occurred. She owned the property.
No, I owned the property that they wrecked. That they spent. We had to spend $26,000 fixing up because they smashed windows. And I found out where the blood came from on that. It was from the police dog.
Oh, no.
Yes. So that's a shame.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Oh, God.
So no, it was from, this was at our own home. Yeah, how do you feel? I feel like our privacy's been invaded. They walked around our home. They took photos. He walked around taking live video, to which we said, we don't know you. You could come back into our house at any time and do anything. I would like to look up the Police Act and see if they've broken any protocols, which I believe they would have. They just think by giving you a warrant, it's everything covered. But I'm going to now chase up the magistrate that signed that warrant and get an answer, because she should have created an affidavit or a certificate of some sort to create that affidavit, to create that warrant. So, but nobody can tell you any answers. You ask people that you think would know.
If someone comes to search your house, so you're not entitled to know in relation to what, like if they turned up and they say, we're here to search your house because we think that you might know something about blah, blah, blah. But can they just turn up and search your house?
They can actually, don't even need a warrant. They can actually just barge into your house. So,
Right.
And the trespass, we don't have trespassing anyway because we've got nothing to hide. So anyway, but more importantly, on Sunday night, Andy released the second story of the Untold story, which people will be really interested in. And we're please asking people, because it got closed down on Facebook on Sunday night, or Monday night, whenever it was. And then also we're going to play it tonight because it did get closed down. So a lot of people may not have seen it in its entirety. So we would just love anyone who has got it, who watches it, to please pass it on to the next person, because that's the only way we're going to get the truth out there, because the media certainly wouldn't get the truth. And then we find out now they've just put a big story about us in the media. And our family. The Herald Sun, some guy rang up tonight and wanted me to talk to him. I said, no, how do you know who I am? I don't know you. I don't know who you are. How do you know who I am? No, because the police have got informants. They must have rats in there that tell the media. And I think it works that way. The police tell the media, the media tells the police.
Doing a story about you, just specifically about
our family, tying us in with this whole DEZI stuff. Disgusting, absolutely disgraceful. And I'm thinking what action I'll take against them, because I think they need to pull their heads in. They make it up as they go. They've named our children, it's an invasion of privacy. It's a lie, an absolute lie. I asked the guy when he rang me, he asked me, had the police been? And I said, who told you the police have been? I mean, how do you know who I am? You rang me on my business number. I said, how do you know who I am? I'm not very famous. I said, you tell me who told you and I might tell you something. And of course, he wouldn't be in that.
No.
So anyway, that was my day. It was very entertaining. We got a lot of stories over about Forest of the Fallen and cops on Forest of the Fallen that have been injured. And they need to go and do some research about the mRNA. And what else did they tell me about? The Constitution. It's probably way above their pay grade. But anyway,
they
wouldn't have a cup of tea. I think they were worried what I might put in it.
Fiddle in the pot.
Anyway, so that was my day today.
Okay, well, I can't beat that, so I won't even try.
No, so But Andy's story, get your tissues because you need a tissue with this story. And I did say to them, they've destroyed Beck and Andy's lives. They let the media in there before Beck and Andy got a chance to come back. The lies, it's just the lies. It's this, there's just none of this stuff makes sense. It's fabricated. All this stuff that they're treating us as if we're really bad people. And I said to them, you're actually bullying us. That's a really bad word nowadays, bullying.
Yeah.
She said something about, oh, I believe. I said, don't use the word believe. And then the inspector used the word believe. I said, don't use that word. Believe means you don't know. It means you don't really know. So you either know it or you don't know it, or you're going to find out about it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Exactly right. Yeah.
It is. Well, that's what believe means. I said, go and look it up in the dictionary if you know what that is. So anyway, that was my day.
Okay,
So it was really good fun. Yeah, it was good fun. So I'm just pleased that everybody, they spread this untold story because they closed the Living Free, who is putting the story out. They closed their channel down. Facebook closed it down.
So we're probably going to get closed down after this.
Well, we're not on YouTube or anything. I mean, well,
No.
if they close it, is it a badge of honour if you get closed down?
Yeah,
Maybe
true.
I'll ring the Herald. I'll ring the Herald Sun if we get closed down and tell them about that story. That's what I could do. A good story. So, anyway, thank you for anybody who's listening, and let's go to the story and let's watch it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, David Armstrong here from Living Free, back with part 2 of the DEZI FREEMAN Untold story. Part of it's going to be catching up with Andy Swift, talking about prior to what happened on the 26th of August and also afterwards what they went through. But some big elements have happened in between now and the previous part. One being the coronial inquest. What I'm going to tell you today is that I have seen footage, and I will be discussing some of the key elements to make sure that we have enough public pressure for the coronial inquest to do a full and proper investigation. We've been told that we cannot release the footage at this stage and that it may tarnish the witness testimony of the police if the footage was to go out and be seen by everyone. With this information, it changes the way things look, and there's some very important things that haven't been discussed that we're going to discuss in a little bit of detail, but we're also going to do in follow-up parts as well. What I can tell you is that the family and friends of DEZI were working with DEZI to try to get him some assistance for his declining mental health that had been leading up for the previous 12 months. He had finally agreed to have an appointment and to see somebody about this, and that appointment was due literally at the minutes that the police turned up and surrounded the bus. They had the keys in the car and they were about to jump in when the bus was surrounded by the police. Did they know that there was an appointment? I'm not sure. What I can tell you is the footage clearly shows that DEZI was begging for assistance. In fact, he actually asked for a disability liaison officer or a DLO 15 times leading in to this whole altercation. There was an additional 5 times he actually asked for the disability liaison officer, Rachel Kelly, who's the local disability liaison officer by name. 2 of the senior police even commented on camera that they didn't know what a DLO or a disability liaison officer was. And it looks like all requests were ignored and they continue to escalate. What I can also tell you is that the footage shows that the police were trying to attempt to break into the bus from almost the very start of the footage, which would have been very close to when the police arrived. He also claims on several occasions that he has PTSD or CPTSD and explains what that is, being complex PTSD, at least 5 times during this footage. He further explains that the harassment that he's had over the last 7 years has been partly to do with this, and mostly the time in which he was arrested at Myrtleford, where they smashed his head against the ground. He says, "You smashed me head into the ground at fucking Myrtleford, fucking me fucking head for life." He's telling them about his mental health. He's asking for help, and they continue to deny and escalate the situation. They presented DEZI with the warrant finally after 20 minutes into this altercation, and he was only given a few minutes to read it before they finally broke in and made entry. He was even requesting that he's given more time, as he'd only had time to read the first page. When they first presented what the charges were, which is regarding child sex abuse charges, he said, "This is absolute bullshit. For fuck's sake, what bullshit? You're breaking the law. You're not following due process. You're terrorizing us. You psychopaths. What is wrong with you? You've been targeting me for fucking 7 years." He claimed on several occasions that the police officer that was behind all of this was there in attendance that day. And he even said that he could see her through the bus window, that she was out there smirking as this was all unfolding. I can tell you on many occasions the Freemans asked that the police step back so that they could exit the bus. They asked them to give them enough space and to stop with the crowbar against the door. This was pled on many occasions and it was ignored. They continued to escalate and they never gave them room to be able to exit the bus. I'm not here to justify and defend DEZI and what happened on that day, but it is important that the full truth come out. The coronial inquest and the media and the police have focused very much on one side, and this is why it's so important that the untold part of the story is told. Hopefully, we can learn from this and prevent these things from occurring, and potentially 3 people could have still been alive if other actions had been taken. You've been here for years. How many years?
Good question. 1976, 77, my family moved to the area. So that's...
And you ran a shop in town. What was the shop called?
Yeah, we had a family business called the Miners' Cottage, and we had that from about 1979, 1980 up until the year 2000. My parents started it off, and then my sister and I ran it sort of for the last 10 years.
And then you got interested in the gold mining and the history of the town and started to create videos. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, look, I'd always had an interest in the history of the area from a young age, with mum and dad knocking down, using old dilapidated cottages to rebuild the house we lived in. And so just been exposed to the old buildings and the history and knowing that somewhere around the town there are all of these old mines. I just was fascinated by it as a kid. You know, who wouldn't be fascinated by gold and, you know, all of these tales associated with it. And there were still mines operating in the area.
Can you just go into what's your relationship with the Freemans? How did that come about? How long have you known DEZI and Marley for? And then what, you know, sort of led up to, I guess, the events on the 26th, and we'll talk then about the impacts afterwards as well.
Yeah, so when we were back in our shop back in the sort of late 90s, I suppose it was, you know, you talk to lots of people, you know, a lot of locals, and I think I would have met DEZI. Well, I did meet DEZI at that time in the 90s. He was just, you know, obviously up here doing his Mount Buffalo thing. And, you know, our shop was pretty interesting, and DEZI sort of came in and I sort of met him over the counter, and every time he came into town, he'd just come in and say, "G'day, how's it going?" and let us know of his adventures up at Mount Buffalo. And then I probably didn't see DEZI for years, and then I got married to Beck, and the girls came along, and through sort of a homeschooling group, Beck connected with Marley and their boys, and DEZI was there, and so I don't know, it's probably about maybe 6 years ago or whenever it was, met the Freemans again and reconnected with, with DEZI and met his wife and his kids. And really impressed with his boys. They are really talented. DEZI still loved the bush, loved Mount Buffalo and all of that sort of stuff.
Your two families became pretty close as well, right? Especially like the kids and Marley and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, well, because they lived here for 3.5 years. We lived very separate lives, so they respected our privacy and we respected theirs. Some people want to come up and use your shed or borrow your tools all the time. They weren't like that. So if they were needed, they rarely needed anything. But if they did, they'd say, we just got to come up to the house. Marley might have a bit of leftover food from doing her food distribution stuff. She'd go to the supermarkets and get, the food that wasn't quite right and distribute it to, elderly people or people who lived on their own. So we were close enough to, know that they were good people. Yeah. And I've said before, DEZI was an admirable dad, but there was still these battles in the background that he was trying to take on and getting a lot of resistance from in regards to, legal things and the Victoria Police and the courts.
What can you share as to some of those battles? Do you have any personal accounts where you witnessed any of the harassment that he was complaining about or any of those things?
Yeah, so I'd heard a lot of stuff for a long time, and I'd seen DEZI being quite distressed by things. And so, there were a number of points. Initially there was this thing at Buffalo Creek at Myrtleford where there's this easement issue. There was another thing where a heap of people went down to a court at Myrtleford where someone else, not DEZI, was lodging something against Dan Andrews. And he was there as part of the support, but he was arrested in front of the courthouse, jumped by the police. And this was happening. I think this happened. This did happen before they moved here, and then there are other things. I think there was he refused to do a drug test at one point while being out fishing with his kids. Now I think that might have happened just before they moved here. And so there was a process where he was trying to get his license back because he refused to do this drug test. And so that he sort of lost his license while he was living here, and that was a very stressful time for him. So there was all of these sort of points in time that sort of seemed to build up, and DEZI would sort of try to go to battle against using, legal laws and all of that sort of stuff. But there's a process that he was trying to do step by step, and he was obviously getting more and more challenged by this because there seemed to be a level of resistance, and some of that resistance came in the form that could be taken in the form of harassment. And so I'd listen to these things a lot, and I was genuinely concerned, but hadn't experienced any of these things firsthand until one night we were coming back from Bright. I was in the backseat of their vehicle with their young son. He was a baby at the time, probably 1 year old. It's about 9:30 at night, driving back up the Buffalo Road, and there were flashing lights behind us. Marley was driving. This is the time when his licence had been disqualified. Their other car had been impounded a short time earlier.
And from what I understand, that was quite horrific for them as well, and it cost them a whole lot of money to get the car back, and that caused a lot of trauma for the family as well.
And that was a bit of a standoff situation where my understanding is DEZI had a letter from a magistrate or a court official saying that he could drive even though his licence hadn't been taken to court. I don't understand the processes, but he had a letter from the court saying he could drive until the hearing.
Yep.
And so he was doing what a dad does. He had all his family out in a van. They'd been swimming and they'd gone into a service station in town in Bright to get ice creams. And then the police must have seen who they were, pulled up, and this is the local police, and, say, well, you can't drive, you haven't got your licence. DEZI said, well, I can. I've got this letter from the magistrate, because DEZI went to the trouble to get this letter. And they just refused to look at it. And there were a number of witnesses there to that event. And then they, it was quite a standoff. Other police were brought in. And so it would have been very intimidating for them. And at the end of that day, they just seized, I think it was Marley's van. And yeah, so he then was just didn't drive. So he sort of, then things were getting darker and harder for him. He just had a young child and, just wanted to go at the bush with his boys, and there was, limitations in place about that. So, yeah, so coming back to this night, we're coming back to Bright. In the car, Marley was driving, and I pulled over by the police. I was in the back with Bubs, and, DEZI said say to Marley, just pull over, just be calm, we'll get our licenses ready. And then so that happened, and then one police officer went to Marley's side, the driver's side of the vehicle, and I can't fully remember, but it was a pretty straightforward sort of thing. DEZI was just helping Marley, just do as he says, do the breath test, I think, and that was all fine. But then the other police officer on DEZI's side started saying, are you DEZI Freeman? You shouldn't be driving, along these lines. And DEZI was saying, well, I'm not driving. And then this police officer was, and I can't remember word for words, but the actions and what he was saying was very provocative. And this officer was sort of thrusting his chest against the passenger side window where DEZI was, and I was sitting behind DEZI in the rear seat, and seeing this officer very aggressively trying to provoke, like in a schoolyard where you get two kids and one kid's trying to provoke another, and the actions of this officer were like a schoolyard bully but trying to get a kid to fight. So DEZI was, very stressed, but saying, I'm not driving, I'm going through the right procedures, I'm going to try and get my license back, I'm going to blah, blah, to take it to the Supreme Court or whatever he was saying. And this sort of was escalating, and Bubs is crying, and Marley's just holding it cool, but there's a lot of tension in the car. The other police officers not really doing much. And I just sort of piped up and just said, look, Marley, I just need to get home. Can we go now, please? And that sort of seemed to break the spell of whatever was going on. And so we drove off. The police said it was like, the police officer on Marley's side, yep, okay, off you go. And so we drove off, and then DEZI was very agitated, and he didn't want to drive back onto our property because they were living here at this stage. And so DEZI had lived on other farms in the area, and he just sort of requested to Marley to drive into one of these other properties and to park, behind a shed, tobacco shed or whatever it was, and turn the lights off. And we just calmed the baby down, and we just sat there, and then we watched this police car go up and down the road. And my feeling is they were trying to work out where the Freemans were living. And so we probably sat in the car for, I don't know, nearly an hour before they disappeared. And
so that was your first experience of sort of, you'd heard some of these stories of the distress and harassment and things that had occurred, but it was your first experience of witnessing that in person as to what may have been going on in the background.
Yeah, that's right. So I was confronted by it. I'd never seen, authority figures personally behave like that during COVID and stuff. We saw a lot of stuff on TV and heard a lot about all of that, but seeing it firsthand, it's a lot to to process, because the Freemans were just normal family people trying to do the best as a family, and then seeing this level of harassment where DEZI wasn't standing in their way or doing anything objectively, but was just trying to use the law system, whether he was doing it correctly or not, to defend his position or get his position back, to have his license back and these things. So that sort of was a fairly distressing or concerning thing for me, and they were living here at this stage, and I could understand his distress now for the first time. And so on another occasion, probably another couple of occasions, the police came onto the property on it was probably around the same time. There was, I think, 2 or 3 police cars and detectives came onto the property, and I was working on the house, and I saw them coming up the drive, and I think they were going to drive down to where they thought the Freemans might have been living. But I sort of, this is my wife and I's property, so I sort of, beckoned them to come up, and I said, "Oh, g'day guys, what are you up to? What's going on?" And they said that they were very general in what they were saying, but they were saying that they were looking for a woman and her young child, and they were worried about her. And in my mind, I thought, well, could that be Marley and the young bub? And so I sort of said, well, can you be a bit more specific? And I said, what's the name of this woman? Do you have a photo of her? And so they then sort of looked at an iPad or something, and they said it was a foreign woman and the child. So the description didn't match the Freeman. So I knew then that these police weren't looking, or at least their purpose wasn't to be looking for the Freemans, but it felt like it was to be looking to find out where the Freemans were living.
So they may have fed you a story about this woman and child?
Yeah, so I thought, well, why come to our property to look for this woman and child? Have you been to all the other properties in the district? Why come to ours? And at that time, they asked, do you have any other people living here? And I said, yeah, we've got woofers living here. And I said, well, what's a woofer? And I explained what a woofer was and all of that sort of stuff. And then they also asked if I knew DEZI Freeman. I said, yeah, I know DEZI Freeman. I think they were fishing as to whether I would give away that he lived here, but I didn't say that they lived here. I just said that, I know them. And then in that same sort of line of question, they asked what a sovereign citizen was. And I'd never heard the term before, sovereign citizen, or at least I was very surprised. I asked them, well, what is a sovereign citizen? And I sort of didn't get an explanation. So I was very sus immediately about why they were there. And so I said, well, look, then they asked to look around the property. And I said, well, look, have you guys got a warrant? I mean, I don't know much illegally, but I knew that if they wanted to do a search, they needed a warrant. And they said, well, they were evasive in that answer, and there was a uniformed officer at the back looking at his iPad. I don't know why, but he was looking as if he was looking for a warrant. And I said, have you got a warrant? And I couldn't really get a clear answer, but I said, well, if you haven't got a warrant, I'd just like to ask you to leave your trespassing. And then they were sort of, I don't know, trying to counter my response, I suppose, sort of politely. And I just said, look, you're just trespassing, can you please leave? And then I said, look, I'm going to ask you a third time, just leave. So they left. And I don't think the Freemans were there at the time, but, obviously let them know. And that was just another distressing moment. So DEZI then, at some point, we have a lot of people driving onto the property anyway during holiday seasons looking for swimming holes. And it's a big property. I'm working all over it. I come back to the shed. I see a strange car driving out. So DEZI offered to make a gate. to make him feel safer, and I'd been talking about making a gate for years. So DEZI got onto the job because it would make him feel safer, and it suited my purpose too, you know, to protect our property against, you know, just farm crime's pretty big. You know, we've got tractors and stuff around. So, so DEZI built us a gate. While that gate was being built, steel frame thing, we hadn't quite put a mesh on it. So, you know, people could still walk onto the property. And it was probably a similar time, probably not long after, maybe 6 months. I don't know the times. But the police and child services came. And again, I just happened to be working at the house at the time, and I noticed them walking onto the property. And I saw them walking straight down to where the Freemans lived. So by this stage, I must have realised that the Freemans were at least, you know, staying here. And so I beckoned to them to come up to see me first. And I said, well, look, you know, what are you guys doing here? And they said, oh, we've come to see Des and Marley about their child. We've got some concerns about that. And I said, well, you know, along the lines, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I tried just to reassure them, you know, they're good, they're fine. If you want to, have you got a warrant, or have you made an appointment to see them, you know, or have you just come up here randomly? I got the impression they'd just come up here as sort of a random sort of thing, like perhaps a surprise sort of thing. And I can't recall if the Freemans were actually there or not. But again, they were sort of, I was trying to be firm that, you know, just make a thing, but they were trying to come back with lots of reasons why they wanted to see the Freemans then and there. I said, well, look here, have you got a warrant? And it was sort of the same sort of thing. You know, I was as polite as I was polite about it. And I just said, well, look, you know, just make an appointment with them. You know, you've got their contact details and arrange a meeting. So, you know, so they left after, you know, some talking, and that just seemed another strange thing. So that was resolved. So they did meet with child services or human services or whatever they are, and resolved the issue. I think it was about the birth certificate for their baby and sorting out all of that.
So I get the impression, because you saw, or had heard initially the stories that DEZI had said about being harassed, and then you witnessed it yourself, that you also then felt a level of responsibility of making sure that these things didn't escalate, and, you know, not having them just wander onto your property and harass and do that sort of thing. So did you feel that level that you needed to sort of protect, you know, and secure your property because of this?
Yeah, and I did. I felt, you know, by that third, even after that initial night encounter, and then with the police coming on here looking for this woman and a child, I sort of could see where DEZI was coming from. With this harassment, and you still don't want to believe, you know, there's a level of harassment, and, you know, DEZI was, you know, convinced they were now harassing him, despite his numerous court things. But by this third time my third interaction with them, when the child people came in, I just felt I just wanted to sort of help, you know, protect the Freemans, but negotiate a sensible way to do things. You know, make an appointment with them. Try and be reasonable. Don't just come in unannounced. You know, if I'm going to see someone like yourself or something, I'll give you a call and say, look, I'm coming for whatever reason. And so I struggle with the way that the Victoria Police or the authorities were wanting to do things, because it's not how I would do things.
So most of these incidents, what we're talking about is, from my understanding, is that there was something around the birth certificate to do with the birth of their youngest child, and then that got sorted out. There was something about them homeschooling. There was an incident with a breathalyzer, that and drug test, and DEZI had refused to do the drug test where they'd then taken off the license. So they're small little things, but there seemed to be a continued harassment. And then the arrest that was outside of the courts was to do with this alleged sexual assault of a child, and that seemed to be an escalation to any of these other things. Is there anything that you saw that would indicate that had any validity?
It just feels like they were trying to target him specifically, and I can't say they were or were not. I can only see their actions. But, he was trying to stand up with the law on these numerous occasions to fight for some justice or for right, whether it's for usually it's for his own family. Most of these things, he seemed to be trying to protect his family. This arrest out the front of the court, I wasn't there on that day, but there were 200 or 300 people who were, was apparently on allegations of some sex charges or something along those lines. He was released, after a few hours or whatever it was. So it just seemed, particularly from that point, out the front of the courthouse, they're trying to build a public picture of him.
He's not resisting. He's not resisting, pal. He's not. Help! Please do something, mate. Please do something on camera. What's your view? Defend me, guys!
Up until that point, it had just been refusing to do a drug test, where I believe he tried to use legal things to say that you can't do that. Not necessarily registering the birth of his child, standing up for a public easement to get access to Mount Buffalo, driving with notice from a magistrate while until he's hearing about losing his license. So up until that display out the front in Myrtleford, they were relatively small issues that he was trying to deal with on his own. But the burden for him, each of those put in his bag, got heavier and heavier, and he's trying to deal with these and protect his family. And what would that do to any man?
Well, having that sort of accusation thrown against you. But something that you mentioned as well was, these allegations, he was yelling like, you've been trying to get this crap on me for years, and talking about, which I think it was about 4 years prior, the arrest outside the court. And he also spoke about, you guys have given me PTSD. You smashed my head against the concrete. And I believe he had blood and everything. And that was a big turning point as far as, mental health and the relationship with the police and all of that sort of thing. Is there anything you want to comment? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's sort of the impression I got was, that had caused a lot of damage, the way in which he'd been arrested and treated, and nothing had come from it. And then these allegations that were from 4 years ago, which he claimed there was absolutely nothing to them, and nothing has come out since to suggest there is or there isn't. So it's very hard to know what's occurred, but it feels like there's more to it.
Yeah. From my perspective, all of those little things, it was quite clear. The refusing of the drug test, the losing of the license, this allegation that came about during that in the courthouse at Myrtleford, definitely was put a lot of stress on him, and so he was very wary of even leaving the property. He would say if he saw a breathalyzer bus, a random breath stop, and he was in the car as a passenger, that he couldn't go through it. It was just too stressful for him. And I can relate to that now. I have this anxiety.
As you see.
Because, it's just, it's, you don't feel safe. And who do you turn to? Where do you turn? You've tried to go through the courts to resolve a license issue, to resolve a birth issue. You then get accused of whatever the sex charge is. You then feel, how can I, other than doing something drastic, he still had to try and, he's still trying to find legal ways to deal with these things, but he was then felt like he's been under attack, right, and just beyond defending himself. So there was trauma there in him that was slowly building up. And, in the last couple of months before August 26th, he was just in a not a good place, I could try and just distract him and, talk about, mechanical things or lighting a fire and boiling a billy and all that sort of stuff. But he was burdened by the whole process.
No, from my understanding as well, he was booked in that day to speak to a doctor to get some help with how he was feeling, and people had he'd expressed prior to of how he was feeling, and people were trying to help him get to that help. Literally, the keys were in the car ready for them to go when the police came on the property, which, there's a lot of circumstances and a lot of things that the public aren't aware of, that the media have put and painted a certain picture that, from what I've seen, is absolute crap.
Yeah.
And this needs to, at least have the truth come out, because there's beautiful family and people surrounding that have been caught up in these tragic events that just do not deserve what they've gone through.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this is only from my perspective, and I try to be impartial. I try to be neutral. But it's hard not to feel a frustration like DEZI did, or feel anger about what seems the people who are meant to be upholding justice aren't necessarily upholding justice in a way that I would be upholding justice. And it almost feels like an attack on Freeman's or DEZI for trying to stand up for simple things. I just can only bring to this what I've seen over the last, a gradual build up over the last 4 years, but somehow I've ended up quite close to the middle of it all.
Yeah. I don't want to go into the events on the 26th because we've done that. I do want to talk about some of the aftermath stuff, the stuff that's affected you and your family, the media, the damages that you've got, extensive damages to your property, the effect on that, the effect on your work. Do you want to just touch on some of the things that you guys have been through? And I know it's traumatic, but if you can share just to put a bit of perspective on what this has been like the last 7 months, to be holding and carrying this burden and these lies being put out about your family, about the property that you own and your friends and all of these things. You know, if you can just share some of that you've been through.
It's so vast and so huge on us and you know, the Freemans and you know, even the police officers that lost their lives and their families, the consequences and the outcomes of that day, and trying to put it in come to understand it objectively, but seeing things that have happened, we don't even have time to process from day to day what has happened to us. Like we had to move. We moved when I left the property on the day of the 26th. I didn't come back. Our family didn't come back for 2.5 weeks. We couldn't move back for a month. The place was left open for 48 hours. And the media was told that the place is no longer a crime scene before we were even notified we could return to our place. So there was 48 hours. So the place, despite trying to make arrangements for it, that it, is our place secured, we were told it was. But when we eventually got permission to come back, the gate was wide open, all the doors on everything was open, and the place was just trashed.
But there was a level of aggression in the way that the place was trashed, in my opinion, with, the pillows being stabbed and car windows being broken with cars that were open.
And we still have struggled to come to terms with all of this, because, I'm not one of these conspiracy people. I'm not normal. None of us are normal, but you struggle with, these people who operate under authority. They're normal people, but they put on a uniform and they become this authority. They come into my house, and sure, 2 people have died and others been injured, but they're meant to be the neutral party. They're meant to protect everyone's rights. So when I see my wife's pillow with multiple stab marks in it and muddy boot prints over all our beds and everything turned up, you just want to swear and yell.
And that trauma of people intruding into your house. Now, all the doors were left open. All the power had been switched off, which meant you'd lost all the food storage that you'd had, because obviously you gather as part of a farm a certain amount of storage food. Everything stunk and everything was tossed up, thrown around. But you helped the police. You've done nothing, and many people would say heroically helped the police, and people can judge that for themselves. But the treatment afterwards as well, and how they've treated your family as part of this, I think is disgraceful.
Well, this is the other hard thing, Dave. I suppose at face level, when you have an interaction with an individual police officer, they seem very, very nice. They seem to be there to serve your interests. And that's how I've lived my life. When I met you for the first time, I want to establish that you can trust me, and so that we can then have open and constructive dialogue in wherever it is we want to get to. And so we personally didn't really experience any aggression towards ourselves, although there were plenty of other individuals who copped aggressive, forceful behaviour from the authorities. We ourselves personally didn't have that confrontation. However, the things that we had to do, we did, and there's a lot of things we didn't have to do to let them subsequently back onto the property for further searches, operations, whatever it was. You know, we let them do that, but we put things in place to try and protect ourselves. So we'd meet them at the gate. I'd do like a toolbox meeting. This is what we got going on the farm. These are any hazards, all of this sort of stuff. So I try to help facilitate that as well. So I'm looking at these individuals who seem to be quite reasonable individuals, but I'm knowing again that, they've busted the windows of the Freeman's cars, all of the windows, or that's the sunroof, or they've slashed the tyres of some of our cars. They've left everything open and vulnerable, and the media have come in. So that they haven't necessarily protected any of our rights, but we've still helped. You want to get to the bottom of all this, whether it's right or wrong. You want to find out if
it's open. Do we need to smash
DEZI has done something. I don't believe he has. Or are the police, what's their motivation?
To lead up to that initial warrant, which has caused all of this, is what you're saying, is that you don't believe that there's a validity behind that accusation from what you've seen.
But from all of the outfall of after that day as well, the warrant things seem to be forgotten from the police perspective, at least for now. Obviously, they've been looking for him up until this last Monday, and so what we're hearing in the media is just it's all about this monster and all of this sort of stuff. I can't listen to the news or any of the media at all or even read comments, because I just find it too distressing, and just try and, just try and understand how this got to this and how we're going to move forward from it all. Every day there's stuff to process. We've been to see Marley today. We're dealing with trying to support Marley and the return of DEZI's body to her and all that sort of stuff. So even now, me trying to relay to you what I feel like I need to be relaying, it's don't look in my brain, because there's just so much.
Yeah, I've been here the last couple of days, and I've seen, and I was up here a couple of days, about 6 weeks after, I think, from the August event. I've met your family. The stress that it's put your whole family under is immense.
Yeah, I just pray that, that truth starts to come out, because all we've heard is conjecture and lies and theories. And people have got nothing, people want to know, people deserve to know, at least, have an understanding of what went on, and they need something to hang their hat on and base their decisions on. So, I'm trying to be as neutral as I can so that people can make an unbiased decision. But that's not what we're hearing from from the police or our government.
Today, an evil man is dead, and it's over. And it's good that this individual is no longer a threat.
I just don't have any sympathy for him. That's my position.
What did you think when you heard the news yesterday that DEZI Freeman had been shot dead by police? What did you think?
good, in a word.
You know, it's accusation after accusation, you know, or names. You're calling DEZI all of these. That's not the man I knew. He wasn't that before the 26th of August. He wasn't that back in the 1990s. He wasn't back that, you know, 5 years ago when I first met, or 6 years ago when I first met his wife in Mali. I'm trying to hold it together. We haven't had an income. We're trying to rebuild our lives. And the authorities, they're holding the narrative. And the media, they're making, you know, painting these dark pictures. And the public, our communities, the whole of Australia have got nothing else to go on. And that's, there's a huge sadness and burden in that. And that, I suppose, comes back to you know, Marley and DEZI's friends and their story, but it also comes back to me because I was, you know, I've been a close witness to all of this unfolding, and I didn't want it, and I know the Freemans didn't want any of this. Did the Victoria Police want some of this? I don't know, but you could start putting some bits and pieces together and think, well, what's going behind all of this? So yeah, I don't know, Dave, where things go from here. It's just
well, for you, you've not had any work since. You just mentioned that. Do you want to go into a bit more detail, because that's been a massive pressure on top of the fact that you've had to try to secure your property. You've had no compensation from the police. You know, hopefully that comes at some stage for that. But, you know, it's been pretty tough.
Yeah, and you try and put it in perspective. You know, it's tough for a lot of people out there. It's tough for the families of the police officers. It's tough for the Freemans. It's tough for the community. You know, financially, it's been really tough for us. I've been blessed because every job I've had in my adult life has been one that I've loved. So it's never felt like work. So money, and I don't earn much. I've never earned a great deal of money, but I've earned enough so we can keep building and you know, growing the family and providing the spaces that we need to flourish in. And so I haven't had the opportunity to work. It's just all stopped. There are some projects that have sort of left in limbo, you know, great community projects, you know, and, you know, I'm letting, you know, these people down on these jobs in Gippsland but, you know, I used to get regular work doing heritage assessments, mine safety stuff and all of that sort of stuff. And I've got one little induction to do next week where I might get a couple $100 to show people what to look out for when they're building a mountain bike track and stuff through a mining landscape. But we've had no income. We've had to borrow money because we sort of in one hand out the other for us. Okay, we're trying to build up a farm, earn a bit of money. I'd got a little bit of money in around the time of August from a job. We spent that straight on a cool room, because we need a cool room to build the farm. So we're from hand to mouth, or whatever that saying is, you know, in and out. Beck and the girls do a little bit of cafe work. All of our season's produce, which Beck would make for processed chestnuts. So, you know, the harvested, peeled, bag sealed, and then put in freezers. All of that was destroyed when the police turned off the power. So we've had no market income during the busy time, the holiday period. So not that we've felt like doing markets, because Beck's spirit just hasn't been in it, because there's just so much to deal with. But we've had no farm income. We've had no heritage income. We've had to borrow money to buy myself a new computer because my computer was damaged with the police seizure stuff. We've had to spend nearly $3,000 on the gate to get it fixed to secure to the property. So, you know, we're building up a debt, and I'm just not getting the work. So as head of the family, you know, I'm trying to be a bit of a rock, financial rock, supportive rock, but also support the community and understand what's gone on. Fortunately, Beck's got a little bit of work, so we're able, and we've got heaps of food at the moment, plenty of chestnuts. But yeah, it's just a struggle, and you know, so this is another thing. Do I think about, well, you know, how will I go with work again? You know, will I feel like working again? Will I still have that same passion to do the justice to the work and the people that, you know, engage me to do that work? Yeah, will I, you know, ever be that heritage advisor that I once was? That's who I am, you know. That's in my occupation, you know, and I don't want to lose that. I want to get back to that, because that's what gives me the spark, which gives my family the spark emotionally, and then also provides money so that we can grow as a family. So,
do you feel like potentially because you're linked to what DEZI Freeman and everything, that you might not be receiving work based on that?
Yeah, I sort of do now. Feel like I'm a potato that's too hot to handle. Yeah. My work in mining heritage put me straight in the category of DEZI could have been hiding in one of the mines that I knew. So, you know, my assumption is that's why the police took all my computers and a lot of my, you know, research material, thinking that DEZI might have been in those mines. So these people who I've worked with, I hope that they're not being put in a position where directors or whatever have said, well, you know, you've got to drop the work. I still feel support in my communications with these, you know, colleagues that work in the government, but I'm not getting the work. And I know it's not because of them, but it could be because of, you know, their bosses and stuff. I just pray that it's not, because these people know that I stand on my integrity. And if someone says that Andrew's work and quality work is good and he's the only one that can do that job, well, why shouldn't they get him? But mind you, I just don't know if I've got the headspace for it. But I'm sure when I'm put in that context, I'll flourish again.
Yeah. You know, hopefully sharing some of this, it gets some context out there as to your relationship, how, you know, what you've done on the day, all the rest of it, and the work and at least the offers for when you're ready, start coming back in. I know, you know, the stuff with the YouTube in putting out the, what's it called, Heritage Rap?
Yeah.
You know, from years ago of you going out into the mines and showing these things. Every time we speak about it, you light up.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that you got to keep doing. When something lights you up, keep doing it and put that stuff out and be there for your family. I know that you've been an absolute rock. You know, you're an inspiration from what I've seen, for everything you're doing. I know you and the family have gone through hell. This will end soon, but I hope people can understand a little bit more, get some more perspective, and start having some respect as to what's gone on.
Yeah, so do I, Dave, but I just thank you for being the messenger. To help deliver that message. Because there's no one out there. There's been no one out there to trust to deliver that message in an unbiased and objective way. And we're also grateful that you've put yourself in this position to be able to do that, because without you, this story, this part of the story would not be able to be told. So yeah, what you're doing is very admirable and very important and very much appreciated.
Yeah, look, as I've explained to you before, I wasn't looking to get involved in any of this. When Beck reached out, and she obviously had a little bit of knowledge about who I was, we met up and I met your family, and you're amazing. And all I'm here to do is to help to share that story and to make sure that you can navigate through this difficult time for everybody. But you know, there's you can't trust the mainstream media because they've manipulated and lied in everything that they've done so far. How do you get that story out otherwise? Someone's got to do it, and I'm honoured that you trust me enough to do that. So hopefully this message gets through and does what it's meant to do.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Well, what do you think?
Poor bloody man.
The family, the whole family. As I said to these cops today, they've destroyed this family, this beautiful family. They're the most beautiful people you would ever come across.
Yeah, you can just
kind, giving, and those bastards. I'm sorry, I'm calling them bastards, and I don't care if it's hate speech. No, it's probably an insult to a bastard. To think they did that and they let the media, and then we've just been attacked by the media, to think they let them in, they're all working together. This is the problem. The media, the police, they all kiss each other's backsides, I think. It's just, I don't know.
I'm just horrified at the condition they left the house in and turning off the power. And they're breaking the windows of the cars. What the fuck? Slapping the tyres. Like,
why would you do that? What? Were they on drugs or something? That's what I'd be saying. Were they on ice or something? I mean, you'd have to be on something to do that.
The damage that did to your place was...
That was bad,
shocking.
yeah. But that was shocking. I mean, they didn't live in the house. They just... It was almost like it's punishment because we actually knew them.
Mm.
It's punishment. Oh, I'm sorry I knew them. Well, what about all the people that knew Daniel Andrews, you know? I'm going to go and do something worthwhile. Yeah, I know, Richard. How can one not cry with that man?
I know.
They won't, a Butterfly Heart 65, they won't wreck the community because the community has surrounded these people and we have a strong community and nothing will fracture it. So they just need to know that and go away and leave us alone. We're just normal, everyday people. You know, we've got holiday houses. If you want to come and stay, Alpine Country Holiday Homes, give me a bell. You know, we never made people wear masks. We never did any of that bullshit when the pandemic was on. So, you know, it's just illegal costs. Oh, yes, there will be no compensation. Oh, well, there will be, but it depends whether you want to accept it. We accepted it. We accepted it because we needed the money to pay all the tradies to fix our work, but it depends what they're offering. I just want to know, did they follow police procedure and human rights? You know, I don't think they did. And until somebody takes that on.
When he was telling the story about how DEZI was asking for a disability officer.
Yeah.
Oh, my, that's terrifying.
But the horrible thing is nobody should have, 2 police officers have died. Why did they not take any notice, the people that were there, why did they not take any notice and actually get the disability? Was there a bus to catch or something? Or were they trying to prove something? Or were they just intimidating? I just, yeah, that's right. The townsfolk were harassed and their belongings trashed. The heartache of DEZI, shame on the authorities. I mean, it's beyond. And then what the Premier said and then what the Prime Minister said.
I know.
How revolting.
How revolting. How dare you say that about anyone?
Well, I know. And people who sent those police in there. Who sent those police in there without any background on it? As we said before, they could have come to any of us. We're in a small community. They could have come to us and said, look, we need to talk to DEZI. Any of us would have assisted. A bit like, we rang them and said, come and check the guns, and it took 28 hours. Yeah, they're really on the ball. It's just they've ruined. No, they haven't, Jacqueline. They haven't ruined lives. They've actually woken people up to how they can ruin lives. They will not ruin lives because we won't give in. I'm sorry. They've picked the wrong people. We will not give in.
Yeah,
so,
that's the spirit. That is the spirit.
We just need support, and we need people to send that really positive support to the community.
So we need everyone to go and watch the Heritage Rat YouTube channel.
Yeah, and support Andy. Heritage Rat
YouTube channel.
It's fantastic, actually. It's really, really good. As he said, people. I said to him, we should open it up in a cinema somewhere here. We could do it in a hall. Actually, that's given me an idea. We could do it in a hall over weekends. It's just interesting to see
yeah, and sell chestnuts to eat.
Yeah, chestnuts. But then you've got to have the energy, and because they pound you down, to get that energy, that's what you need. So, but we keep the energy going. We keep it going. Keep pumping everybody up. So that's all we can do. Anyway, what a day!
So, and everyone must share this story. Share this story. Like, make a pledge to yourselves to show
share it to 3 people. Send it to 3 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 people and ask them to share it again, and then again.
And tell them to watch it. Tie them to a chair and make them watch it.
Yeah, because mainstream media, you certainly don't get the truth.
No.
Yeah. No. Anyway, that's what they'll try and do. Try and push you down. But anyway, good luck. Bring that on. I got my shit stirrers. Got my shit stirrers.
Proud shit stirrers. All right. Well, I suppose we better go because
we better go. Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Please pass it on. Watch the Heritage Rat. I believe Mike Palmer's doing a talk as well, but I'm sure everybody's going to be hopefully talking about this, and we get it out there. Every social media platform should be playing that story.
I think so. Even if they someone clever edit it into a shorter version? Because not everyone's got an hour. Yeah.
No, they haven't got an hour to watch it.
Yeah, someone needs to edit it down and do the bullet point bits. Well, Michael can do that and play it on his Instagram and things like that. Just play the
snippets.
The snippets
of it.
To get people
that's right. We need snippets.
Yeah.
Just pick out little snippets to go for a minute.
I mean, if I say to my normie friends, sit down and watch this for an hour, they'll lose interest in 5 minutes.
No, most people can't even concentrate for an hour.
No.
Thank you for that. So
all right.
Anyway, we'll catch up, and thank you everybody for listening. And good luck. Wish me luck.
Yeah, I wish you luck with your Herald Sun story.
And Bex just said check out Know Your Rights tonight because he's going to be talking about it as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
all right.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Good. All right. Well, let's keep on fighting and. Yes, it might be a bit of a mess on the What the Fuck show tonight. Yeah, fair enough too. All right, well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, but I'll talk to you, Kay, and keep really posted. And I just still cannot believe you had all those policemen in your house this morning. That's just...
Oh, I know. Anyway, it's all good.
At least you had your hair cut.
I know. I had my hair cut. I hadn't even brushed it when I got out of bed, by the way. I still haven't brushed it. Anyway. All right.
Well, my mum always used to say, make sure you wear nice nighties and dressing gowns in case someone knocks the door in the early
What happens
morning.
if I'd been wearing nothing?
How
embarrassing.
I know.
Would have been for them.
All right. See ya.
Okay.
We're ready to go, Kelly.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye, Michael.
See ya.
On the dirt by the fence line, I seen it turn mean. Boots in the dust, and it looked like a machine. With the political enforcement officers, listen to me and you. When we are in a fight, when the grass gets chewed. I don't need a medal, I don't need a lie, just someone on my side when the hard times fly. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. We all bleed red, and I'm standing by you. True blue, true blue, that's what mates do. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. Woo! Have you been stabbed? I don't think so, mate, but I saw your jaw go tight at the busted gate, standing by your mate. When they're in a fight means staying in the ring and keeping it right. If the storm rolls over and the trouble comes through, I'll plant my boots there and I'll stand with you. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. We all bleed red, and I'm standing by you. True blue, true blue, that's what mates do. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. Down by the war shrine, firing bullets at peacetime. When will they realize we're their own kind? Mates through and through, red dusted the good book and Versailles. Remember what our diggers did for me and you. Blue bees among the yellow, some say 832, but no matter who, I'll plant my boots there and I'll stand with you. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. We all bleed red, and I'm standing by you. True blue, true blue, that's what mates do. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. Now past the paddock, past the wire and dust, a good mate's shoulder is the one thing you trust. No fancy words, just a hand held firm when the road turns rough. That's where hearts learn. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue. We all bleed red, and I'm standing by you. True blue, true blue, that's what mates do. We all bleed red, but the nickname is True Blue.